Yeah, just where we want to be. Opening the chat in my browser.
Al, that stash is impressive.
Cute. Mustache May.
Mustache May.
Yeah, it's a official thing.
Is it really?
I'm no Chris Higgins. I don't have the floral shirts to match my mustache, but
yeah, man, it's kind of a requirement.
Sorry, I try my best.
We'll have a talk. We'll talk offline.
Just send me a shirt.
Okay.
Looking rather Magnum PI there, Chris.
Thank you.
Is that the goal?
You know, it wasn't really the goal, but I'm happy to end up there.
It's everyone, Chris.
So what did everybody do this weekend?
Wait, Patrick, I didn't hear that last thing you said. It was real quiet again.
The shorts that you're wearing, Chris. Magnum PI wears shorts that are about a quarter thigh long.
Oh, I'm there. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
It's actually along there.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. You need a Detroit hat, and then you got the whole thing.
Great. Alex, I can't tell if you were being a goof or not. Is my mic being quiet again?
Yeah, it keeps like fading to quiet. I wonder if in
maybe the
Discord
noise gate was too low,
or
too high.
Yeah, it's got the auto adjusting thing. Because like your first 3 words, I couldn't hear it all, and then it came to normal volume.
Okay, I'm making here. It's not on auto sensitivity.
You're saying now is good.
Okay, well, just keep me in the know. Hopefully, my recording will still sound good regardless.
Cool. Yeah, maybe just keep an eye on the levels every once in a while to make sure it's not getting weird.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I just need to get a blue snowball like the rest of you guys. That's the real lesson here.
It is.
Someday we'll have those fancy XLRs. I promise we'll do that someday.
If we have a rich fan, they can buy it for us.
Yeah, that's true. So what did everybody do this weekend? Anything fun?
I got sunburnt.
Oh, actually, I played that game Half-Life Alyx. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's a VR game. Yeah, so I've been playing that. You guys ever played Half-Life?
No, but I've read synopses because I knew I will never have time to play it, but I'm really interested in the story.
It's always like on sale for like $2 on Steam. Half-Life
I always have like a soft spot in my like repertoire for it because the Portal came out with that orange box that one year. So
no, it's supposed to be like the best VR game ever made, and so far it's been very, very good. There's these things in it called head crabs that are basically like face huggers from Alien. Except you're dealing with them in VR. So you'll hear something scurrying around, and you're in like a dark sewer. And next thing you know, you'll see this turkey rotisserie chicken spider thing jumping at you and screeching.
Will it vibrate your head if it lands on there or something?
Not really, but it's still pretty immersive. So it's been fun though. It's been a cool experience. Recommend it if you guys ever get the opportunity to try out some VR.
Now this is the perfect time of our lives to have a VR headset. I don't know if you guys have been in a Target or a Walmart lately, but since the Trump bucks came rolling in, like there are no consoles in Target.
The Switches especially, I think, have been quite sold out. So
yeah, I mean everything in Target was gone. Xbox, PS, Switches. So
I haven't been into a Target or a physical retail store in years before the quarantine. I don't know why I would start now.
Oh, cool. Contrarian take, Alex.
It's not contrarian. You can get all those things online without leaving your house.
Oh, yeah. Amazon exists. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So,
anyway.
Podcast, Star Wars. What are we talking about this week?
Well, first, are we live?
Yes.
Good boy. I knew you'd sneak us online, Chris.
Oh, we've been online for hours.
I literally said we're live.
We're like, you said that?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
But I did say it sneakily.
We'll get this ironed out someday. Maybe first 5 years are just all a trial. As they say.
I'm pretty sure we're on year 6 now, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Okay. So and then there's such a trial that you forget one of them completely.
What is our birthday? I'm gonna look that up.
It's around. I think it's July 1st.
I want to know the exact date.
Okay, fine. Don't take my word for it. I was only the person that was publishing these for years. So
it's June 29th of 2014. So we should have a birthday party on June 29th.
Yay, 6 years. So we can throw an awful tantrum too
Yeah, maybe.
and say more gifts.
What's the best theme for a sixth grade? I'm pretty sure when I turned 6,
Chuck E. Cheese for sure.
I think I went mini golfing.
We can go mini golfing. I mean, golf courses are open now, so
True.
No. But I don't think mini golf courses are. I ran by one this morning and it was closed.
oh man,
It was
see,
it was also Sunday morning at 8.
I was dismissing all of these people that were protesting, but now that I know that mini golf is also involved in the shutdown, then that's it. That's my last straw, dude. I'm dressing head to toe American flag. I'm writing stuff down on a piece of cardboard, and I'm posting up right outside my local mini golf because we are going mini golf, guys. We're doing it.
Chris, how you feel about Wheeler Park?
Wheeler Park is top class.
We're getting real granular for all the local
Are we getting
listeners.
real Batavia right now?
No, that's Geneva.
Oh, okay.
Chris probably spent many an hour there.
If you ever been up the I-90 corridor heading to Wisconsin, you've gone by the one in Rockford, which is Volcano Falls, and they got water that's painted red, so it looks like a volcano. It's pretty tight.
And down the road from that is Hong Kong Buffet, which has the best sesame balls I've ever had.
Oh wow, sesame balls. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Some good regional content.
Yep.
There's also
Patrick,
Magic
you wanna
Waters
throw-
there.
Patrick,
I
you
worked
wanna
at Magic
throw in
Waters. If
anything,
you've seen it.
non-Illinois for our, I don't know, Kentucky listeners.
Sesame balls.
I did it again where I couldn't hear you.
God damn it! I'm being censored by the government. One moment.
About sesame balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This tyranny must end. All right. I'm gonna go back to auto sensitivity and see if that does anything for me. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
It sounds great. It's always just the first couple words.
So I'll just hum for 3 seconds before I start talking, like to power up.
And just pretend like you're singing the Crash Test Dummy song.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real earworm. Wait, so Kentucky stuff, Alex. You were asking me like about where to get sesame balls in Kentucky, or what sort of?
Well, we're talking Geneva. We're talking Rockford. I don't want other listeners in other parts of the country
like
to feel
kitschy
left
teen
out.
things to do.
Oh, go to Spinelli's and get a hot slice and some fried Oreos, bro.
There we go.
Wow, there we
Yeah.
go.
On demand. You were ready for that.
We're gonna have some Louisville area people that are just gonna flip their lids.
You kind of said it correctly just then, Nick. You're supposed
Louisville.
to like. Yeah, Louisville. Yeah, you're supposed to say it like you have marbles in your mouth, like you can't give a shit to pronounce it.
Louisville.
Louisville.
There you go.
Going
you
to
go.
the movie theater and kind of or a movie theater mall situation where they're connected and just kind of hanging out, loitering around the movie time before and after. I think that's a very high school thing to do.
I think
Talking
that's.
Charlestown Mall.
What's
I
that?
don't think people do
Oh,
that
yeah.
anymore. Do kids? Okay, write in, kids. Kids that listen to this podcast. What?
Which is like 3/4 of our listeners.
What is
It
the like
was in my era.
2000s kid version of loitering at a mall? Because I don't think that's
Well-
happening anymore.
No.
Well, we're 2000s kids.
Are you 2000s kids?
Yeah, we were all in high school in like
Were
2000.
you teens in 2000s? Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I was too. Okay, sorry, 2010s teens, or to make it easier, 20 teens.
Zoomers, come forward.
Yeah, what do you do that's considered loitering now?
They make
Do you
TikToks.
You go
That's what I
outside
was
the
gonna
vape
say,
shop.
Yeah.
You hang
They-
outside the vape shop and like maybe do TikToks and like maybe floss or something.
They rip 3 jewels, blow some fat clouds, go on
Hey.
TikTok,
Definitely
do,
not seeing
like,
movies.
do strange intimate dances for each other on TikTok.
Well,
pretty
like
much how it
joking
works.
aside, kids these days, as someone who used to work with a bunch of them, they genuinely don't do as much just hanging out as we did, because with all the social stuff, you're able to. Patrick is laughing at this way too hard, but
I don't want to be that guy, Alex. But the mustache is really helping you right now, talking about an expert on the kids.
You know, I have a lot of kids that
Listen,
are fans.
I'll tell you what the kids are doing these days. I've been paying attention.
You know, the
Please
thing about
don't.
teenagers is I keep getting older and they stay the same.
He's got the
age.
shirt too. He's got.
All right.
I want
Anyway,
to still hear your insight. What they
yeah,
don't
please.
just
The-
hang out.
the actual insight is they don't do as much hanging out. Like a good majority of the high schoolers I was working with would, like, their Friday and Saturday nights, they were just staying at home because they have all these social ways to interact with their friends. They didn't have the same like basement hangouts or going to the parks or going to the movies. It happened from time to time, but I feel like, when I was in high school, there was no Friday or Saturday night when I was staying home. And for a lot of the teens I know, that was the norm.
Yeah, I was getting into online gaming, or like that was a thing in high school, but
Xbox Live, bro. Come on.
yeah, yeah,
That's
Call
my
of
entire
Duty.
weekend. Halo 2 lockdown.
Yeah. Halo 2 was my freshman year
Extension.
of college. There was a lot of time wasted on that, and it's perfect for sitting in a dorm.
Yeah.
And I bring this up not to be like an older generation scold. Like I'm not like, oh, you guys don't know how good you're missing it or something. But I'm just truly concerned because I feel like that was the best part of being a teenager is loitering, and I'm just concerned that the kids are not getting to loiter. Not because I think that their lives are going to be missing anything, or like that they're bad for not loitering. But I was like, oh man, that's a thing that kids don't do.
Well, in the 70s, or I think in the 60s, maybe 50s and 60s, people used to just cruise. That was actually something that George Lucas was a huge fan of, is the cruising culture. But he said as you
American
got
Graffiti.
Yeah, but he said that was kind of like, it kind of died out, like in the 70s, I think.
I tell you what, though, in Rockford, it has not died out, especially during this, this whole thing that we're going through. And it's not just cruising. You get the loudest car, you drink the most Monster, and then you just rip up and down my street.
No, I mean, I think people in general are probably getting out in their cars and riding around more now because it's just like one of the ways you can get out and be in a semi-controlled environment, especially now that the weather's getting nicer in Illinois. But
man, my whole diatribe about loitering could have gone Biden real quick. The kids, they sit. We used to, when we were kids, we would go out into the parking lot, and I had a lawn chair, and I would go sit on the lawn chair, and they don't have those anymore. You could go and you could try to get a lawn chair, but they say, hey Buster Brown, we don't have those. What do you think? It's 1970. We don't have those.
We touch each other's hair on our legs and see whose hair was longer on their legs, and if the one with the legs was longer, then you were the bad boy in town. They don't make them.
I would go to school, and we'd all have the hairs, and we'd look at the hairs, and this is what we did. And I think kids are missing out because all these kids want to get on the talks and the talk books.
Folks, it's not a joke. I'm not joking around here.
Yes.
Here it is. There it is. All right, so you want to rein us back in here?
Yeah. On the note of what kids used to do, we're gonna talk about kids being fans of Star Wars and old Star Wars fandom because it's May the 4th.
Hey.
Big umbrella.
Ooh,
we just want to kind of just bathe in some Star Wars to this day because there's no. I got some agenda for us, but I think we're gonna go a little bit all over the place. But it's May the 4th.
So happy May the 4th. May it be with you. Nick, do you want to go into a little bit of what that agenda is? Where do we want to start with this?
Yeah, so I got a bit of a reading series, and Alex, I think you have a little one for us as well.
Wait, let's introduce ourselves. We forgot about that.
Oh, hey, yeah.
I'm Alex.
I'll go first. No, Alex will go first. I'll go second. Hey, I'm Nick Oswald.
You go first. He went first. I'm Alex.
All right.
Okay, I'll go third. Hey guys, I'm Patrick Ebersol. Patrick, how's it going?
All right, Chris, you go third.
I'll go third. Hi guys.
That's 4.
Hey, it's producer Chris.
What's up, everybody?
Clearly, we're losing it during quarantine.
I'm telling you, it's one of these days. I think maybe 6 years from now, we'll get it right. So I want to go back. So May 21st or something like that is the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, 40 years ago. And I'll tell you what, there's going to be if Star Wars Celebration gets canceled this year, it'll be a shame. But I feel like they're always going to have this wonderful metric where they can always do the 40th anniversary of something because they just did, obviously, Star Wars, the motion picture in 2017. And now they can always do the 40th anniversary of this. They can do the 40th anniversary of whatever. And then they can do the 20 and then the 30, and it's going to be great. You got content forever. But with the 40th anniversary, we've had, several years. Obviously, I wasn't alive 40 years ago, let alone old enough to see a movie. But there's some hot takes from 1980 about The Empire Strikes Back that, let's say, didn't age well. So specifically, we're going to go through some reviews of The Empire Strikes Back, and honestly, keeping it with a little bit of an idea of reading reviews from the movies we just saw. Obviously, Rise of Skywalker being the most recent one, and another good example is having the second movie in the trilogy with The Last Jedi. The reviews for that were actually a little bit better from actual professional reviewers, but obviously not as good from the public. So 40 years from now, when we're I guess 70 in our 70s, we can talk about the reviews for The Last Jedi. It's like, remember when everyone hated that Snoke was nothing? Now we're like, oh, that was better. Yeah, okay. We can do our own Joe Biden at that time.
So, Nick, why don't you go into one of the first reviews you wanted to touch on?
So, and I want to. There's a theme here, and I want to say that maybe in 1980 there was just a different class of reviewers, and you'll come to find out. I'll make little call outs here, but I feel like movie reviewership is just a little bit more accessible today. Like Patrick, I think you go a little bit deeper onto like the slash film type people, but like no one makes highfalutin references in slash film. They just make references to other movies. And they're smart, they're intelligent, and obviously the folks around the ringer.com are very intelligent too. But like, I don't feel alienated by them ever, even if I've never watched any things that they watch. But like, there's something about this reviewer class of the 80s, or maybe just by effect of writing for a newspaper, that turns you different.
What happened was with the internet, there was an idea of like, I don't know if I would say subjectivity became like more of an option, but like an understanding that there's a niche for every kind of opinion that you want supported, right? And that you can find different blogs or outlets to support that. So like, if you're someone that's like generally a fan of like all types of music, and you just appreciate music, even in like the popular like top 40 music, maybe you don't go to Pitchfork. Like that's not like your right sort of outlet. But you can find whatever sort of like blog you want for movie reviews. You can find ones that are more facing the nerd geek culture side of movies and things like that. Or you can find things like maybe Empire or The Atlantic that might be skewing a little bit more towards like general movies. But I think that like most of the popular ones understand now that like now anybody's listening might have any sort of interest in popular movies, whereas before there was this idea of like, hey, I'm objectively movie guy, and as objectively movie guy, my opinion is objectively more valid than yours. And it wasn't like based on starting a conversation, it was more based on like, in the same way you give like Michelin stars to a restaurant, it was the same sort of thing for movies. Roger Ebert was like the big king of that in a way.
Yeah, and even Ebert and Roper have a little bit more, I'd say, approachableness. I hate saying that about things in media, like
accessibility.
But like, there's going to be a theme that you're going to see here, and I'm going to start off with the New York Times review of The Empire Strikes Back by Vincent Canby, and there's very much like coming from the ivory tower, not just because of this guy, but also you can tell like people would turn to the New York Times for a little bit more of a cerebral take on movies, but to a fault. And one thing I'm going to note it too, this is from June 15th. So again, another thing that June 15th, 1980. Another thing that the internet has changed is like you could sit on your ass for 3 weeks writing this review and that's acceptable. Whereas now, like, you got to basically get this thing churned out within an hour because you already saw the movie a week before everybody else anyway. So got to chalk that up to newspapers being weird with this. So June 15th, 1980, a full 3 weeks after The Empire Strikes Back. Let's set the stage here. Even the title itself is pretty fun. The Empire Strikes Back strikes a bland note by Vincent Canby.
3 weeks to come up with that.
What's that?
It took him 3 weeks to come up with that.
3 weeks for, a scant 10 paragraphs here. Well, a little bit more than that. But the Force is with us, but let's try to keep our heads. These things are certifiable. The Empire Strikes Back, George Lucas's sequel to his Star Wars, the biggest grossing motion picture of all time, has opened. On the basis of the early receipts, The Empire Strikes Back could make more money than any other movie in history, except maybe Star Wars. It is the second film in a projected series that may last longer than the civilization that produced it, which is a hilarious take back then. But then again, this is the thing I can say without a doubt. And then the rest is all confession. When I went to see The Empire Strikes Back, I found myself glancing at my watch almost as often as I did when I was sitting through a truly terrible movie called The Island. It's like, what about The Empire Strikes Back is boring? Like, first of all, if you think it's pedestrian, like, there's nothing boring about it. Come on.
Also, let's not bring The Island into this.
What is The Island anyway? Are you familiar with this film?
They did a remake, Michael Bay remake in 2005. But the original...
That's a DiCaprio movie, right?
No, that's Shutter Island.
Okay.
The Island, I'm pretty sure the original, it's a remake in the sense, if I'm remembering right, like I Am Legend is a remake of, I forget what the
or something like that.
Yeah. But the newer one had Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor. It's quite good. I'm trying to find what year the one from the 70s came out. Or it was 1980. Starring Michael Caine and David Warner. Directed by Michael Ritchie. It actually might not be related to the newer one at all. Yeah. But it's a great horror movie. Come on.
The Island is a great horror movie?
Yeah, the original.
Okay.
So we're taking a crap not only on The Empire Strikes Back, but also The Island by proxy. So, okay. Moving on.
A 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not great, but not the movie let's crap on. Come on.
Yeah. The Empire Strikes Back is not truly a terrible movie. It's a nice movie. It's not by any means as nice as Star Wars. Oh, wow, big take there. It's not as fresh and funny and surprising and witty, but it's nice and inoffensive in a way that no one associated with it need to be ashamed of. It's also silly. Well, it's a kid's movie. Attending to it is a lot like reading the middle of a comic book. It is amusing in fitful patches, but you're likely to find more beauty, suspense, discipline, craft, and art when watching a New York Harbor pilot bring in the Queen Elizabeth II into the Hudson River berth. Wow, burn. Shots fired. Which is what The Empire Strikes Back most reminds me of. It's a big, expensive, time-consuming, essentially mechanical operation. Wow.
Wanted to hear. It's like, not to interject here, but it's like the equivalent of some dickbag coming up to you after you finish a Coke out of a glass bottle, and you're like, that was tasty. And he's like, oh, you think that's tasty? Clearly you've never had Pappy Van Winkle out of an 80-year-old aged cask. And it's like, all right, there's different types of good, idiot. Like, the goal of going and seeing Star Wars is not to get the same sort of pleasure you'd get from seeing some French art film.
I really, really want to time travel this guy to last 2 years ago and make him watch Infinity War. Just watch the pupil, make him want Clockwork Orange style so he can't blink.
Infinity War is as arduous as riding a burro down through the Grand Canyon as the sun beats upon your shoulders.
I like to
if
imagine...
you think Infinity War is good, let me show you where the sausage is made or something.
I'd like to imagine this guy sitting strapped down Clockwork Orange style in Games Theater, watching it during the portal scene, and then having to be surrounded by an audience of people who are losing their shit, crying and cheering and going crazy over it, so that he has to be immersed in the idea that no, this is what the people actually want. What's the name of this writer again?
Vincent Canby.
Vincent, this is what the people want, Vincent. And he's like, you're wrong, you're all wrong.
I imagine he has just this effect about him that's not quite British, but maybe a little British. It's so you tell me that this is way that these have been the biggest movies for the last 10 years.
He's Frasier, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It seems
these are popular movies. Yeah. And this is the culmination of 10 years of them. Oh, good Christ.
By God.
Oh, I'd much rather eat a hot dog. Which we'll get into that later.
A tube steak.
A tubed meats. Gone from The Empire Strikes Back are those associations that so enhanced us in Star Wars. Here's for Alex here. Reminders of everything from Passion of Jesus and the stories of Beowulf and King Arthur to those of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn and the Oz books, Buck Rogers and Peanuts. Like, this was written for Alex. Just so you know.
Those are all my favorite things. The stories of Jesus, Huck Finn, and Peanuts.
Yeah, these are like your references too. Man, you guys would get along. Yeah. The Empire Strikes Back isn't even a complete narrative. Yeah, duh, dipshit. It's number 2 in the third trilogy. It has no beginning or end. It's simply another chapter in a serial that appears to be continuing not onward and upward, but sideways. How then to review it? Question mark. Also, I guess you haven't figured it out, but you're going to spend the first paragraphs telling us there. Okay.
Wax poetic about a bunch of random bullshit that has nothing to do with Star Wars, and then say, "Oh, how do I review it?" Just keep.
How do I review this?
Yeah.
The fact I am here at this minute, facing a reproachful typewriter and attempting to get a fix on the Empire Strikes Back, is perhaps proof of something I've been suspecting for some time now. That is, that there are more nonsense being written, spoken, and rumored about in movies today than about any other so-called popular arts except rock music. The force is with us, indeed, and a lot of it is hot air.
All right, was that the end of the review?
No, there's a lot more.
Okay, let me.
But I want this guy's review on Led Zeppelin records because it's going to be like the same thing.
Let me jump in with some background details on Vincent Canby that I think gives a little context to this. Okay.
Former Nazi.
All right, shoot. I got to see a picture of this guy.
Notable movies he panned, which all of these almost bug me. He did not like Rocky, Empire, Jedi, Night of the Living Dead, Blazing Saddles, Witness, The Natural, Rain Man, The Exorcist, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Godfather 2, Alien, or The Thing. So those are all movies he didn't like. But to give a little more context into his personality and maybe why he was such a dweeb when it came to the movies he liked, in high school, he hitchhiked with his friend to Richmond to buy a copy of For Whom the Bell Tolls. So he wanted this book so bad that he hitchhiked. And then he was so disillusioned with the way that movies were trending that in 1994, he stopped reviewing movies and became the New York Times theater critic. Because film has just fallen off. I must go back to the theater where true stories are told.
I wonder what he was like when he saw Pulp Fiction for the first time. Look up his review for Pulp Fiction. That'd be curious. And I'll say one thing real quick here is like...
Oh, he was done by that time.
Not 94? I thought Pulp Fiction came out in 92. Or was that Reservoir Dogs? Anyways, whatever.
Dogs.
My point...
I'm not touching that film.
Yeah. Tarantino. I put the no in Tarantino.
Ew, hot take.
But the thing about that I kind of take away from this is like... I don't know. I feel two ways about it. I'm glad that we're at a point now where there is a bit more of a popular understanding of not being like elitist or condescending and having that be something that necessarily needs to be there to be a relevant reviewer. Like, that's great. But on the downward side of this, I will say too that probably the reason we don't see this as much in popular print or like popular media platforms is because, and we've seen this, if he gave a bad review for Avengers Endgame or Star Wars or Batman vs. Superman, so many people on Twitter would be saying, like, kill yourself, I'm gonna kill your family, or like whatever, would be beating down his door with all these death threats to him. And that's why a lot of these people who like give negative reviews for popular movies probably do it with a little bit of fear, or they're doing it intentionally to be a troll. There is one, and this is not me like saying this is one guy people should harass or whatever. There's one popular like more modern film critic named Armand White, and he, like, every movie that generally people think are really good, he'll go and write like this terrible review that's kind of in the same vein as this New York Times writer, like whether it's Inception or like The Dark Knight or like Return of the King, like any of these movies that are generally loved by audiences, they'll always be like, this was a dull affair, like every time. So anyways,
if it wasn't Ingmar Bergman or something, it's just like a fall short of a...
But then he loves like Michael Bay Transformer movies, and he'll say like, this was a revolution. So
wow.
Yeah, so look him up sometime if you want to see like.
He's in the back pocket of Big Michael Bay. Big Bay.
Yeah, Big Bay. Yeah, he is the Bay of Bay.
I'm going to skip around because honestly, a lot of this is just tiresome. But we're going to skip to him talking about the plot, which there's some pretty funny parts in here. And if you didn't guess already, this guy died in 2000. He was 76 years old. At the time, he was
X-Men.
At the time, he was 56 years old. So he was already a little bit of a crotchety old coot at this point.
Yeah.
But hearing this describing the movie plot is pretty great. So under the command of Darth Vader, the forces of the Empire attack, employing planes, missiles, and some awfully inefficient tanks that have the shape of armor-clad camels.
Pretty accurate.
I mean, that's accurate. Somehow Han Solo and Princess Leia escape. At that point, Luke Skywalker flies off to find Yoda, a guru who will teach him more about the Force. Yoda, being the successor to Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alec Guinness, the Star Wars guru who was immolated in the movie. He was
struck down.
He was set on fire. Okay, but whose shade turns up from time to time in the new movie for what looks like to have been about 3 weeks of work. Again, accurate. You'll find another thing about this. I don't think he mentioned, but these reviewers all hate the fact that Yoda was a puppet. It's like, man, let me fast forward you to the year 2000. I'll give you something to hate. Anyway, or more 2002. As Han Solo and Princess Leia wrestle with the forces of darkness and those of a new character played by Billy D. Williams, an unreliable fellow who has a future sainthood written all over him, which he nailed, by the way. Nailed it. Luke Skywalker finds his guru, Yoda, a small, delightful, Muppet-like troll, created and operated by Frank Oz of The Muppet Show. Eventually, these two stories come together for still another blazing display of special effects that, after approximately 2 hours, leave Han Solo, Leia, and Luke no better off than they were at the beginning.
That's life, bro. We go through many hours, and
isn't that what's thought of as like the most revolutionary aspect of that movie? Was it was one of the first ones to have a downer ending, like
right.
And that's that's if you look at a trilogy as a 3-act structure of like any general narrative, the idea is at the end of the second act, that's when you're at rock bottom, and then you make your return through the third act. These are basics,
the hero's
man.
journey.
Come on, Vincent.
It's the circle of eighths or whatever, the Dan Harmon thing. Like you got to come out and you got to fail, and then you go back having changed or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, he's physically changed. But anyway, in 1980, I don't think they were ready for this kind of stuff. They weren't on the Joseph Campbell train yet. I'm not as bothered by the film's lack of resolution as I am about my suspicion that I really don't care. After one has one's fill of the special effects, and after one identifies the source of the facetious banter that passes for wit between Han Solo and Leia, it's straight out of B-picture comedies of the 30s. Okay, fair. There isn't a great deal for the eye or the mind to focus on. Ford, as cheerfully nondescript as one could wish a comic strip hero to be, and Miss Fisher as sexistly pretty as the base of a porcelain lamp. Become, is it rude to say, tiresome? Yes, it was rude to say, Vincent. One finally looks around them, even through them, at the decor. If Miss Fisher does much more than this sort of thing, she's going to wind up with the Vera Haruba Walston Lifetime Achievement Award. Like, what is that, buddy?
Popular reference, Nick.
Yeah. Is it rude to say? Yeah, it is. Let me repeat that one again. Miss Fisher as sexistly pretty as the base of a porcelain lamp.
I feel like you could take a lot of the current references in modern reviews, and 25 years from now, they'll feel the same way. Like porcelain lamps.
I'm also puzzled, and I'm skipping around here. We're almost done with this. With Vinny, we're almost done. I'm also puzzled by the praise that some of my colleagues have heaped on the work of Irvin Kershner, whom Lucas, who directed Star Wars, and who is the executive producer of this one, hired to direct The Empire Strikes Back. Perhaps my colleagues have information denied to those of us who have to judge the movie by what is seen on the screen. Did Kershner oversee the screenplay too? Did he do the special effects? After working tirelessly with Miss Fisher to get those special nuances of utter blandness, did he edit the film? Who exactly did what in this movie? I cannot tell. And even a certain knowledge of Kershner's past work, The Eyes of Laura Mars, The Return of a Man Called Horse, and Loving, gives me no hints about the extent of his contributions to the movie. The Empire Strikes Back is about as personal as a Christmas card from a blank. That cuts pretty deep there, buddy. All right, close this out. I assume that Lucas supervised the entire production, accurate, and made the major decisions, or at least approved of them, also accurate. It looks like a movie that was directed at a distance, accurate. At this point, the adventures of Luke, Han, and Leia appear to be as self-sustaining organism beyond criticism, except on a corporate level. Okay, so he has some points there.
I asked some of the same questions too, but not in a mean-spirited way. Like I do also wonder who contributed what, like with the Empire Strikes Back, because we've had like a different director for every original trilogy movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sometimes I've wondered that, like how, because it seems like George he's obviously had a different influence on each of those films rather than the prequels where he had a lot more direct control.
Funny enough, I think obviously some of his stuff is pretty dated. The references aside, his opinions are kind of just, he would get somebody canceled nowadays. But also it's just his disdain for something being popular, I think, is very apparent. However, if he is looking at the mechanics of the film and somehow he was able to understand that Kirshner is kind of a Lucas puppet at this point, there's something to be said about how it was not really Kirshner's baby to handle anyway.
One thing that I'll note from his review too that I think is, I don't know, it just makes it seem a bit flawed in the way that he's evaluating and analyzing the movie, is that he talks about he talks about like B-movie wit or something, and like talks about it being bland again or something.
Yeah.
And again, it's this thing of like, I think you can review a movie any way you want to, but I think an important aspect is to look at like what is the goal of the movie and is it achieving that? And even if like that means that the movie is not like hitting you in the areas that you like, you can at least appreciate it for what it was trying to do, even if it wasn't like your bag. Like there's some people where like the new Joker movie with like Joaquin Phoenix were like, listen, it's really upsetting, didn't feel great after seeing it, but I like understand that's what it was trying to do and never want to see it again, but hey, great job. Like whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars is very much trying to harken back to like old B movies and serials of the 1930s. Like that's the point of it. All the planes and tanks and stuff in it are supposed to be indicative of that too. And so like the fact that he can't even pick up on that influence or that goal, it kind of shows that there's just like almost like a bad faith interest in watching the movie and just trying to look for reasons where he's like, that's bland. And it's like, are you looking anywhere past like what you're wanting out of this movie as opposed to what the movie's trying to do, And
I'm glad you said that too, because you are picking up on references that a 50-some-year-old man in 1980 should be able to pick up. Because there'd be one thing if I just read this and just, hindsight is 2020, just pot shots on this guy from 40 years ago, just utterly dunking on this guy. And that wouldn't be good faith, nor would it be fair. But like the point of this is he completely missed the point and judged this like some kind of Broadway play, but it's a serial movie for kids, and maybe that just didn't occur to anybody in the 80s. But like, come on.
That doesn't occur to people today to have the fan base acts over the movie.
But from a different perspective, not like, oh my God, why is this not more serious? It's more of like, well, why didn't they reference the thing I wanted it to?
Yeah. It's wild though. It's wild hearing that. All
right, we ready to move on to a second review?
Yeah, this yours, Alex?
Yeah, I got a much shorter one for you guys. This one was published June 16th, 1980. Review written
again with these late reviews.
Review written by People Staff. It was published in People magazine. Okay, and there's
a bunch of people doing a bunch of heavy lifting as a staff writer, right?
There's a very specific theme to this review that I find hilarious, and you will see it very shortly. And I quote, "Remember Casablanca 2? Son of the Wizard of Oz? Gone with the Wind and back again? Of course not. Because long, long ago in a movie capital far, far away, people dared not tarnish the memory of classics by exhuming them for sequels. This movie, of course, is Star Wars 2. And while it's hardly the worst sequel ever made, Exorcist 2 retained that trophy, it's not up to the original either." So that's the first paragraph. And I just love that, like, this reviewer's main thing is, this movie, Star Wars, was too good. It shouldn't have had a sequel. This just messed it up. And now we're how many Star Wars movies down the road?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, and I didn't realize how much Lucas made it public that he wanted to make 9 movies, but a lot of these reviews that I was reading, and we'll have to put in the show notes kind of the links to where Star Wars talks about these reviews, because Star Wars was not shy in saying this got bad reviews in the 80s. But a lot of these reference the fact that, oh boy, we got 1 down and 9 more to go, or 8 more to go. But it's interesting that that was such public knowledge back then.
Yeah. So carrying on, the spacecraft laser battle gimmicks are familiar now. So even though these are the most special of the special effects, they are no longer so fascinating. Worse, the more one sees the main characters, the less appealing they become. Luke Skywalker is a whiner. I kind of agree.
Correct.
Han Solo, a sarcastic clod. Princess Leia, a nag. And C-3PO, just a drone.
Sure.
Nor will the acting of the performers who play them, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher, stand much scrutiny, especially in comparison with Alec Guinness in a cameo as Ben Kenobi, and James Earl Jones, again masterful as the evil voice of Darth Vader. Now this review goes from here and gets into some positive stuff. There is a delightfully conceived and executed elfin guru named Yoda. Also charming is George Lucas's continuing homage to his favorite things. And I love that we're going to get another list of his references, and none of them are shared by the New York Times review. Hamlet, Tarzan, The War of the Worlds, Jack London's story To Build a Fire, and even Star Trek seem to be saluted.
These people just love to make references. They just look at all the things I know.
Yeah. There are a couple of surprising plot twists as Luke confronts the darker side of his nature, but the ending is emotionally unsatisfying, and that's no accident. Lucas says this is only the first of 8 sequels, which ought to be enough to wear out the batteries in Luke's light sword. Oh, zinger for the last line. Yeah, so that was what People magazine had to say. Thoughts?
See our episode How Lightsabers Work? Because that's not how they work.
Yeah, there's no battery in there.
Send that link to the editor-in-chief of People magazine today.
I keep referring to it as Star Wars too. It feels like the equivalent of how your parents would constantly call Pokemon Pokemon because they just don't care. They're just like, I don't get it. I'm just gonna call it by the name that I can handle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I find that often when a movie has a complicated title for its sequel, like you go to the theater and it just says that movie 2. It's like Avengers 4.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you just call it Empire or something, right? There's workarounds that are a bit more understandable.
Sure. But I think we're doing a good job, fellas. I don't think we're being unfair, just simply because we're reading these people in their time and not taking complete dunks over them. But I still think it's just kind of idiotic, like some of the takes that these are. So.
Yeah, I just love that the overall theme of that review is Star Wars 1 was so perfect that we didn't need a sequel. Think about the whole overarching Star Wars saga ending after one movie.
And just think about how beloved this movie is, considering how many, through the test of time, this is a lot of people's favorite movie, and that it was this kind of rung through the, put through the ringer back in 1980.
Yeah.
Two things too I'll say is how bold it was of them to make the decisions they made, considering how much backlash they got, but also the fact that when they were making those decisions, they played it so close to the vest too. The Luke being, the father, all that stuff. They only let 3 or 4 people on the cast and crew know what that aspect was, and then to go through all those lengths to do that, and then they have all of these reviewers and fans saying these things, which I don't know if we want to do it now or later. I have a couple of excerpts from fan mail that was written about disliking Empire as well. So
go for it. Yeah, if you want to go to that now.
Cool. So this was the YouTube.
Where would they send this to?
I'm sure it was just to the sci-fi and geek movie magazines of the time, right? The Editor's Corner, how Stan Lee had Stan's soapbox where they would send their mail for Marvel Comics and stuff. So,
which is just such a quaint thing of the past, which I know Marvel still does that, but
Yeah. Well, there is something to like I can give props in the sense that like these fans were clearly that frustrated and tortured over their feelings about the movie that they sat down, started writing it down, had to go and get postage, walk over to the mailbox. Whereas
Yeah.
now, if you're enraged about something, you can just find any portal to just spew your rage on and then hit enter before you have a second thought about it. So,
Reminds me of a
uh,
story I just recently saw on Twitter about this guy's dad. Was so pissed about the Cubs in the 80s that he wrote letters to other ball clubs, shopping himself as a free agent fan to other teams. And he actually got letters back from like the Brewers in Seattle and just saying, hey, we can't take you, but if your fandom is really making the team bad, go be a fan of the Yankees, which I thought was pretty great.
Yeah, so actually, these are from an old sci-fi magazine called Starlog. So they were fan reviews that were sent in. So just some
So
little
cool.
excerpts. Yeah. So I think this first one is from somebody named Robert L. Beatty. He said, quote, "Is Luke related to Vader? Most think so now that Vader came right out and said it. Well, I say, do you believe everything you hear? Vader may have lied just to enlist Luke to his side. Vader would then dispose of Luke once he got what he wanted." So some denial about Luke being the father kind of thing.
He couldn't
No-
What an
accept
awful
it.
plot if that were actually
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah, he was just pulling a quick one on him. Star Wars fan Sean Bernard coming up. So, quote, "I know they wanted to leave something to settle in the other sequels, but they left a little too much. For instance, Han Solo's predicament. The movie should not have ended until Han was either killed by Boba Fett or Jabba, or rescued by Lando Calrissian or Chewbacca, the former preferably. Also, the fate of Bespin is not told. Was it taken by Lando's troops, taken by Imperial troops, or destroyed by Vader? I like Lando Calrissian, and Billy D. Williams was very good playing the part." End quote. So that one's a bit more respectable. I mean, I can understand you walking away and be like, "What happened to the Cloud Place?" You know. So, and then let me see what else I had here. Um, this one has some vibes that you see on the internet now. So this is from apparently a woman named Carol Kane. Quote, "Come on, Leia. Why don't you take a look around? Can't you see what Luke is up against? You could have had a, quote, nice guy like him. Instead, you were turning your back on him. Forget that it was Luke that saved you from having your atoms scattered throughout the galaxy. Forget that it was Luke, and not Han Solo, that wanted you rescued from the Death Star detention area. But you don't need to remember all that, Leia. As long as Hot Lips Han is around, who needs
Oh,
Luke anyway?" End quote. That was
This is like old school incel friend zone stuff.
but it wasn't written unless Carol is like a guy's name. I think that was written by a woman, so I don't know.
I love
Girls don't want
the
nice
name.
guys.
I love the name Hot Lips Han.
It's your new Xbox Live gamer tag.
I just love
Also-
that letter.
The
So much.
alliteration kind of works with Hot Lips Low too, so you guys can call me that from now on.
That's the 1980 version of like putting the calipers up to the jaw. It's like, well, Luke would have never worked because he doesn't have the same jawline. People are
Yeah.
just not into those things
Those
back then.
damn space chads.
Yep.
Anyways, so there's
That was
some
a good
some
one.
little blips from the fandom at the time that were having some struggles with Empire. So yeah,
Indeed.
yeah.
Why don't you find yourself a rebel like Han, not like Luke?
Hot Lips Han.
Hot Lips Han. I love it.
Just completely black pilled. I got one more
Technically,
for you.
Cold Lips because he's in Carbonite now, Carol.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Proved you wrong, Carol. Go ahead, Nick.
So I got one more. This is from Judith Martin, and Judith's on the ball. She was a young go-getter back in the 80s. Because she's still alive today, but she got this one out on May 23rd, so a whole 2 days later.
Wow.
Oh, good on you, Judith. Way to grind. But this was this was in the Washington Post on May 23rd, 1980, and this is just simply titled "The Empire Strikes Back." To call The Empire Strikes Back a good junk movie is no insult. There's enough bad junk around. And surely we're getting over the snobbery of pretending that it is undemocratic to recognize any hierarchy of culture, as if low and high can't be appreciated, often be the same people. But when light entertainment has done well, someone is bound to make extravagant and unsupportable claims for it's being great art. You will hear that this sequel to Star Wars is part of a vast new mythology, as if it were the Oresteia. I mean, just say Just say Homer's Odyssey, dude. Its originator, George Lucas, has revealed that the two pictures are all actually parts 4 and 5 of a 9-part saga, as if audiences will someday receive the total way devotees go to Seattle for a week of immersion in Wagner's complete Ring cycle. So again, more insight to who this person is. Nonsense. This is no monumental artistic work, but a science fiction movie done more snappily than most, including its own predecessor. Hot take there for 1980. A chocolate bar is a marvelous sweet that does not need to pretend to be a chocolate souffle. Musical comedies are wonderful entertainment without trying to compete with opera. Blue jeans are a perfect garment that shouldn't be compared with haute couture. There are times when you would just much rather have a really good hot dog than any steak, but you still can't recognize that one junk food and the other isn't. Like, that didn't age well, because tell that to people who loved hot dogs.
It's like the same argument I was making before. Like, a hot dog is good. Steak is good. You consume them in different circumstances based off of your mood. Like, if you're looking for a certain type of satisfaction, throw Star Wars on. If you're looking, like, you wouldn't be like, I'm gonna do a two for tonight, a double feature. I'm gonna watch Star Wars and then I'm gonna watch Schindler's List because I want to watch good movies. Like, it's come on, man.
That'd be an interesting night. That sounds like a quarantine depression night for sure.
Yeah, that's the exact kind of movie marathon I do for myself. I'd flip it. I'd watch Schindler's List and then be like, I got to balance this out with Star Wars.
That's
what I do for my
way better.
Like,
it's my date nights.
Oh, on the other hand, I watched Roadhouse last night, and after watching that, I was like, maybe I should watch something that is a little higher in cinematic value to balance that out.
Like, you can still say Roadhouse was a good time, right? Like, that's the point I'm making.
I loved watching every second of it.
Yeah.
Some would say the best time. But I just thought this was right in our wheelhouse, because not only was it about Star Wars, but it's also about hot dogs. But I think maybe this is, again, not being fair to the writer, but in the 2010s, there was something to be said about hot cuisine and hot dogs and like fast casual food that was taken to an entirely different level that maybe wasn't in your Times Square hot dog stand back in 1980. But like nowadays, there is that level of, you can go have some version of a pizza or a hot dog that is like critically acclaimed more than any steakhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I think too, like, one thing that I'll mention that maybe people weren't as familiar with at that time is that, these more popularly consumed movies are influenced by the high cinema that these people watch, and it's like a gateway for a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise see that type of insight from those movies, in their normal sort of cinema consumption, right? So, George Lucas was inspired by, Kurosawa and like samurai films from, the 1950s, 1960s, whatever. Like, those same fans wouldn't have necessarily sought that out. Some of them won't after seeing Star Wars, but other like mega fans would be like, hey, I kind of want to see what went into this. So it's like, that's also what frustrates me, because these movies can still have value and contribute to that higher cinema and bring fans towards that sort of stuff, whereas they otherwise wouldn't have done that. I'll calm down. I'll take a step back.
Sure there was some critic writing for the Nippon Times in the 1950s that was like, 7 samurais too many. We would have been fine with 5 samurai. This plot's all over the place. Yeah. You can find people that want to shit on anything.
Yeah, you might as well get a maki roll instead of sashimi. Am I right? Anyway, that was my attempt at comparing a hot dog to steak.
Well, her review is like a direct reply to the former review of. He clearly doesn't consider that to be a good. He doesn't consider Star Wars to be adding value to the culture. He just doesn't. He hates the idea of it, and he just wanted to push a review out there that would, show the audience that you don't have to enjoy this. This is just stupid popcorn nonsense.
And were people pushing this as really high art? And like that this is a response to that? Like, because the other guy was saying that this is junk and nothing but junk, and it's not even good junk. But this lady is saying, oh, well, it's like a good hot dog. But
honestly, it's the same argument that, and here I go, but it's the same argument like Scorsese was making about Marvel movies, about them like not being cinema or whatever, right? And I'm not going to get to that whole argument, but the idea of popular culture or popular movies not being able to contribute to like artistic merit generally, right? And not being able to be part of the general conversation. And I think like a lot of that tends to come from maybe it generally older generations seeing something and being like, I don't like that. Like that's not my way of having a good time. So I'm not even like they go into the movie with a cynical mindset to begin with. And so that's why I think in a lot of these reviews you see these lines where I'm like, I don't think you're really getting the point here, man. Like your
Didn't
hot dog
Scorsese
steak
say he would
embarrassment.
never make a Netflix movie too?
I don't know. And like I
Yeah.
can and that's the thing is like at the end of the day, like the Scorsese ones, his is at least coming from a place like, hey, it's not my bag, so I don't really like them, whatever. And like that's fine. Like you don't have to be forced to like them, but it's the people who like come out and try to say like these movies are trash. Like why do they keep getting made? Like that kind of thing. So
Well, and it's not like this was an era of only these cinematic masterpieces and then this was the first popcorn flick. I'm looking at the movies that came out right around the time. A couple weekends before were Friday the 13th and a movie called The Nude Bomb. A couple weeks after this came out, The Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood and Herbie Goes Bananas.
yeah, and but I think like what was happening, if I were to make an assumption here, is that like these critics were probably pissed off that they were seeing that Star Wars had some influence in popular culture, like a large amount of influence, right? And that upset them because they see that influence starting to shift the idea of like, well, what is this going to do to movies coming up? Am I going to see more and more of these Star Wars types of movies? And they did get made, right? But like it's like an active rebellion to that. Like I think they understand that like Friday the 13th movies were like a self-aware trash in a way.
Yeah.
Like they knew, and like the people that went to go see them knew that. But like there was the fact
They
that
inhabited a corner, whereas
yeah,
this was the block.
it was, and it was also just like the technical aspects of these Star Wars movies is that like even if you didn't like the stories themselves or whatever, you could still look at the visual effects and be like, that is revolutionizing what we're seeing in movies. That's pretty incredible, right? So
Yeah.
The next weekend, a movie came out called Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, which, as a Peanuts connoisseur, I've never even heard of this. Uh, it was a wide release. It involved two French exchange students coming to their school, and in exchange, Charlie, Linus, Peppermint Patty, Marcy, Snoopy, and Woodstock all head to Europe. Oh, I'm gonna have to find this.
Dang. That's like the same plot as Spider-Man Far From Home. Anyway, so there's a couple of good takes from this, actually, and kind of funny takes. And I'm going to skip around a lot and take things out of context. But in this film, as in Star Wars, a trio of nice, average-looking young people, which really? Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford are average-looking? Maybe Luke, but... What the funny, and then let's go down a little bit further. A new puppet representing a great guru, but looking like an elderly Eastern rodent, is a success. An invented beast of burden that looks like the rear half of a cheap camel costume is not.
A cheap
Okay.
camel costume.
Okay.
I want
Okay.
to see these Eastern rodents.
Man, critics hate puppets in 1980. Jeez. And now all we want is get the puppets back. The future is no longer quite pictured as belonging to white males plus one pedestal princess in a white gown. Like, oh, this is ahead of its time here. The princess has put on more sensible clothes for wartime, and there is exactly one other woman in the universe. Again, accurate Star Wars critique.
yeah.
Who can be glimpsed working at the home base. I forget what her name is, but she's a hero. There is one black. Okay, I didn't say this. This is written down. Billy D. Williams as a man who seems to have been set up with his own planet by the Small Business Administration and keeps complaining that he has no choice about betraying everyone.
Now that's
Judith, woke on feminism, not so woke anywhere else.
She was having a couple of glasses of Pinot while she was knocking out this review and started going down a slippery slope.
I find your
She's,
lack of wokeness disturbing.
She'd be great on Wine Mom Twitter.
Yeah.
At the beginning and the end of the new film, the bad empire and the good rebellion are still at odds. The fact is that there's no beginning or end, just several middle-of-the-story chases, one on ice, several using spacecraft in airplane dogfight style, and some classic duels, except that the swords are laser beams and use of mysterious force means that one can wilt one's weapon back in their hand after it's knocked away. Wow, this was above her head, huh? As for the idea of the Force, it is a mishmash of current cultic fashions without any base in the ideas. Okay, it's space magic, bro. Calm down. It doesn't seem to be connected with ethics or a code of decent behavior either. Skywalker, I did not. This is what it says. Skywalker is never called to account for having behaved unpleasantly to his guru before knowing who he was, even to the extent of knocking food out of a hungry guru's hand. How many religions of any kind would tolerate a disciple's having refused to share his food with his disguised spiritual leader? But then you don't go to junk movies for your philosophy or religion, do you? And that's how it ends.
Cheekling, D. You literally just give this one point. You're like, but that's, I guess, not the type of movie that would really be exploring that stuff.
Yeah. I was imagining her watching the first Yoda part and just being like, when he stop eating my food, just like, what?
Yeah. Are we gonna have a 20-minute scene exploring the ethics of what this man just did?
Yeah. What is he ever going to be able to answer for not knowing who Yoda was?
Yeah.
Which I guess, in hindsight, he wasn't very good to Yoda at first. But of course, Luke was kind of a terrible person. But
whiny little boy, whiny baby boy. Yeah.
Anyway, so in short, takes in 1980, not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think
to be fair, we could have found good reviews too, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. StarWars.com has some pretty good reviews in there. There's a contemporary to these two. I can't remember her first name, but last name is Kale, and she gave glowing reviews of The Empire Strikes Back in kind of the same tone that they did, like making references to other kind of high art, but also recognizing that it's a Saturday morning serial.
I'm just curious. I kind of want to go and read up on the other reviews that these, writers put out in the coming years, because they were in for a real bumpy ride in the 80s, man. From having such.
It was about to get rough.
Yeah, because you think about, they didn't like what Star Wars was doing, and then going into the mid 80s and late 80s, that's when like the Arnold type action movies became really popular. So and like RoboCop and all those things, and so. At that point, I can only wonder that, how their criticisms were feeling, seeing movies that were being way more absurd, way more over the top, way less ethically concerned, I don't know. It was a real bumpy ride for their very refined sensibilities, I feel like.
I feel like there's podcast potential for just going back to movies we love from the 80s and 70s and reading crappy reviews from that time. Maybe spin off that Bill Simmons and the Ringer can steal.
Bill Simmons would never be able to get a New York Times review job.
I feel like he talked for too long about like Jason Segel's penis and forgetting Sarah Marshall. He'd give like 2 paragraphs to that.
Much like the 2003 Red Sox, and but it's about a movie.
Hey, do you guys remember the movie Rounders? Good movie, Rounders.
Great, man. The part when remember when he would open up the Oreos? Remember that?
Matt Damon.
Big mistake. I shouldn't have brought him up. I'm sorry. Sorry, listeners.
You can't bring up Simmons without getting my Simmons.
Yeah. Well, all right. I have nothing else to add on that review. Is there anything else of note you guys want to discuss?
Patrick, you got a little fanfare for us, right?
I feel like it clashes a little bit too much with the theme, so I might hold on to that for a little extra episode content some other day. Yeah.
Teaser.
That's what we would call in the business a cliffhanger.
Hey. Fans didn't like that one back in the 80s.
Keep adding carbonite till it's ready.
Ooh.
Well, Hot Lips, we hope you're all having a proper May the 4th. Watch some good Star Wars content. Maybe get outside the box for this. We've got.
Oh yeah, how are you guys going to celebrate?
Probably drinking.
Well, I've convinced Jenny to finally watch The Mandalorian, so that's what we're going to do.
Oh, nice. Maybe you know what? Maybe I'll go back and watch Empire. It's been probably almost a year now since I've watched it. So
then you should write a review.
This has got me inspired. I'll watch Empire, and I'll write an 80s style pretentious review about
Yes,
it.
I want
And
that.
we
I
I
want that.
really
uh,
see. I want the
publish
Men in
it on
Black
site.
memory eraser to be real because I want to erase your memory of everything before 1980, which I guess is be nothingness for you. But like erase your memory of Star Wars and anything else, and then have you watch it and write a review because I'm sure it would not be good.
That would be the May the 4th gift I'd give to myself. If I could have like 3 hours just to forget seeing it for the first time and then have it, my memory back after I'm done, that would be pretty fun.
This is so stupid. I hate this movie.
So that's
Okay.
how I'm going to celebrate. Chris, Patrick?
Well, he said he's drinking. I mean,
Oh, yeah. But anything specific, Patrick? Like Star Wars themed blue milk?
I made a drink from the Star Wars cantina. What's it called? Nick, what's the cantina called? The bar at
Chalmers
whatever, if that's or Oga's
or
cantina,
at Star.
I believe. Yeah.
Oh,
I
at
believe-
Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, Olga's
Um,
Cantina.
so I found a recipe online for one of the drinks there called a Dagobah Swamp Slinger. It's basically like a margarita type drink. I made that yesterday. Didn't really like it. So I'll probably drink
No,
something
sir, I
else.
didn't like it.
Drink something else, and maybe I'll play one of my Star Wars games on my computer, one of the retro ones, and see how that goes.
Yeah, all those games on sale. There's a big sale going on right now on Star Wars
That was
games.
Steam that you sent, right?
Yeah. I feel like I should buy one with
Yeah.
those prices. Do you guys have a retro game you'd recommend? I could play
Star
on May the
Wars,
4th.
Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. There can be some difficulties with modernizing it, because it came out in like GameCube era, but it's a lot of fun. You get to use all the different force powers and lightsaber and shooting and whatnot. So
Episode
Okay,
1
would've
Racers on there.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Don't act like I don't have that for N64.
Yeah, but like you could get it on something else now.
I don't want it on
Also-
something else. I want it on my N64.
the Knights of the Old Republic games are always a good time.
Yeah, I dabbled in
absolutely.
one of them back in the day, but I never quite fully got into it. Yeah, interesting. Oh, and also I might be doing a new Star Wars. What do you call RPG? Like more Dungeons and
RPG?
Dragons style, though. Not video
Tabletop?
game style. Yeah. So some
I
friends.
wish you
and
were
I are-
LARPing.
No, none of that. But some friends and I are going to do some virtual character creation, so maybe we'll schedule that for tomorrow to celebrate May the 4th.
Cool.
Chris?
Well, I know there's this whole like live stream happening tomorrow. Virtual Star Wars like May the 4th event. I don't know exactly what is going to be happening, but I think there's going to be some content. It looks there's also the Star Wars the Clone Wars finale. So I'm really looking forward to that because I'm caught up on the Clone Wars and there's a lot of speculation about what the last episode will be, so I'm pretty excited.
Well, cool. Sounds like a good May the 4th. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We're going to have a whole bunch of episodes coming your way soon. So, of course, rate, review, subscribe. All the social media is Star Wars LC, and that's how you can really see what our hot lips have to bring you.
And to kick it off, I just bought the Baby Yoda Funko Pop
Look at you.
because it just became available, and I have the Mandalorian, and I need to have his buddy.
I dig it. Well, thanks for tuning in. We love you guys.
Bye,
Stay safe.
everybody.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be
And also
with
with
you.
you.